welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Angela and Stephen.
Let's go through the papers for you this morning with political commentator Benedict Spence and broadcaster Liz Kershaw. Good morning, you two. Let's start with EVs, electric vehicles, Liz, in the Mail.
Yeah, so I've read the most horrendous stories, as I'm sure many of our viewers and listeners did, over just after Christmas, where people had got an electric car and embarked on their first long journey home, whether it was to Scotland. There was one guy who set off down to Cornwall.
Oh, I read that.
And the range anxiety, he said he felt sick the whole way there and the whole way back, and the number of times he had to stop, and the range would tell him one figure and he'd see it tumbling before his eyes, and the queues for charges, etc. So interesting.
We'll get used to that though, won't we?
Well, we shouldn't have. The aim is to have 300,000 charging points, public ones, in the country, and currently we're up to 30,000, which is 10%.
We haven't got the infrastructure, have we?
No,
it just isn't there.
The other thing is, and it's a real issue for me, because I've been looking to get a car that I feel safe and comfortable in, and so I put it out on Twitter. Should I get petrol, diesel, hybrid or electric? Overwhelmingly, people said petrol, and this article is saying the electric car revolution is into reverse, and people are thinking again about it. I certainly am. I've researched it as well this week. For a start, you need electricity to charge the battery, and electricity has to be created and supplied by the national grid, and it can either be done disingenuously by importing frozen fracked gas from the United States, or burning coal, or burning wood that's been brought all the way from possibly the Amazon. It doesn't come from nowhere, so you're still reliant on fossil fuels. The second thing is the batteries and the earth metals that are required. I've become quite a scientist, and most of these are obtained in China, because that's where they lie in the ground. So not only are we at the behest of China, I was reading about the Chinese have also bought sites in Africa, and the environmental and human damage it does open cast mining these really quite unstable elements is appalling when you read about it. The local water supplies become contaminated.
We've got to do it more carefully, but we are moving. I mean, this is the direction we're moving in, and we've got to embrace.
Currently, I think the point that Liz is making is that it's only affordable because it is effectively being done by a form of slave labour. These are people being paid children being paid subsistence wages, if that, in Africa, and not just in any old Africa. It tends to be places like the Congo. It's the worst part, the poorest places where there is the least sort of oversight. Somewhere else where it's starting to be done, hilariously, is Afghanistan, which has vast natural resources that we need for environmentals, and now just happens to be controlled by the Taliban. There are going to be very few qualms there about the rights of the people working. But
bringing it down to the people that are watching this programme, if they decide to buy an electric car, they have to think very seriously about where they're going to be able to charge it. If you live in a house that has a drive and you have access to an electric point, that's fine. If you live in a flat, where I live, there are loads of flats.
You'd have wires dangling from the window.
You can't have. There are 3 charging points when there are well over 1,000 properties in the area. But it just isn't going to work.
But even if I could say, I've got somewhere I can park it off-road and plug it in, fine. I couldn't now, having read all this stuff and watched a report on a foreign news channel about it, and had my eyes opened. I couldn't sit smugly behind the wheel of an electric car and think, I'm so virtuous, I'm doing my bit for the environment. Actually, I'm ruining landscapes in other continents and poisoning and killing people. A friend of mine, the son was
It's not that black and white, though.
A friend of mine's son did metallurgy at Bristol University and died at the age of 26. He went to work for a mining company in South Africa, Southern Africa, it wasn't South Africa, mining just these things, and died of the most horrible cancer. Could the two events be connected because it's
not
local
simple.
people.
It's not simple. You're absolutely right.
Something very quickly to add to that. The last couple of months, the National Grid has been talking about rationing energy. It's been talking about blackouts and brownouts. How can you square that with telling people to cross over to electric vehicles?
Benedict, you have got a story there from the Times, haven't you?
Yes, and this is more good news. And that is that the people smuggling industry is going gangbusters and making record profits. 183 million is what is estimated the criminal gangs made from transporting just over 45,000 people across the English Channel in small boats. That is up from just 299 people in 2018. It is expected to be around 65,000 this coming year. Already over 1,000 have made the journey in the depths of winter in the freezing cold. And it is just, I think, a sign, really, that this is something that Rishi Sunak and his government, they've staked themselves very clearly in the sand, saying this is something that we're going to address. But all the independent experts say that this is something that's going to be very difficult to address, and it's going to cost an awful lot of money because, as you can see there, 183 million, there is vast financial incentive for the criminal gangs to keep this up and keep it going. The French authorities, according to the Times, stopped 31 crossings yesterday. They stopped 31 crossings. If they're doing that and it's still profitable and it's still incentivized, just imagine actually how much more money could be made and how much we are going to have to set aside in resources, not just us, the French as well. They're going to have to set that aside in resources to stop these things from very determined people, who are fleeing wherever they're fleeing, or in the case of the people from Albania coming for economic reasons, but also deeply rooted, long-standing criminal organizations that crisscross around Europe and have their fingers in many pies, who are, let's be honest, the history of organized crime in Europe is not one of people who are not determined, to put it that way. It is going to continue this year unless an awful lot of resources are brought to bear against these criminal organizations.
The French are able to stop more better.
Exactly.
Yes.
Liz, to the Sun, and they've made a lot of headlines with their HS2 investigation.
Yeah, I went on, I said this week I went on the Elizabeth line, which is the Crossrail.
Is that Crossrail, Elizabeth line?
From London, from Reading to Abbey Wood or Stratford in the east. Absolutely superb. It's the future. But then I thought to myself, why don't we have something like this in the north where I'm heading today, and I'll be sitting in some clapped out, dirty, filthy train, chugging along across the Pennines. What's happening to levelling up? So the Elizabeth line, it runs parallel and links up at nearly every station with the tube. It actually runs parallel with the Central line for quite a long way. When you get to Docklands, it runs parallel with it runs alongside the Docklands Light Railway. So the South East got this, London got this. Then I thought, I wonder how long it is. So it's 65 miles long. How far's Liverpool Lime Street from Leeds City Station? 62 miles long. It would have been so much benefit levelling up the northwest. And there's now been abandoned. Any hint of a fully electrified high-speed rail link between Liverpool, Leeds, and why not onto York and Hull seems to now have been shelved. Anyway,
but it's about the infrastructure, isn't it? I mean, how difficult it's going to be. I mean, going under London and all that, it's not that difficult because of the infrastructure that's already there.
There's a lot to avoid.
Well, there's a lot to avoid. You just go deeper. But it's presumably more problematic going Liverpool to Leeds.
Well, I don't think it needs to be underground. For one thing, there's a lot more open land. And secondly, the tunnels through the Pennines are already built. In fact, there's one that they bricked up that's no longer used. But there are at least two other routes that were in the Victorian era with navvies with shovels. They managed to bury it through rock and through the backbone of Britain. So I think
there's just a lack of desire, really. Actually, you look. I tell you what, you look from space at the map of the UK, and you look at Liverpool to Manchester, and then you've got the Pennines, but then it's Leeds and it's Bradford, and there's another large urban centre. There is huge potential there that just isn't being made the most of.
Can I just say there will be people in the West Country watching this program saying, why are you talking about London, the South East, and the North? How about giving us a decent railway system that goes from London all the way to Penzance, because there's only one line and it takes 6 hours. So it's.
But isn't it interesting though that if they did Liverpool to Leeds, if they did London to Penzance, there would still be plenty of people up in arms saying we don't want it.
I don't think you'll get too many of them down in the West Country.
Well, I think back to the peg for this, though, the high-speed rail from London to Birmingham and then on to Manchester and Leeds. They're now saying it might not end in London. Well, why did they do it in the first place? It's like a staircase that allows you have to jump down.
I was going to say, there's probably a lot of people in the north who are thinking, thank goodness it's not going to go all the way to London. It'll stop just before it gets there.
Again, the high speed, the Elizabeth line manages to bypass the two major stations to the north, Euston and King's Cross. So it goes from Paddington to Liverpool Street, carefully avoiding linking up with the rest of the country. Who thought that plan up?
A 12-year-old.
I don't get
Yeah, it's...
Everything's so well run, isn't it?
on that note, ladies and gents,
Thank you both
Liz
very much
Kershaw,
indeed.
Benedict, thank you very much indeed.
Let's bring you